Welcome everyone. My name is David Corsar and I manage the career development programs here at the National Wildlife Federation, and I will be your MC for the next 2 days. I'm joining the conference from the National Wildlife Federation's headquarters located on the land of the Manahoac tribes. The Manahoacs were a hunting, gathering, and farming people with 9 recorded tribal communities situated along local waterways. While the tribes were decimated by the diseases brought by Spanish colonialists and the weapons strategically provided to their local adversaries by English colonialists, the few survivors are thought to have integrated into neighboring tribes, most likely the Monacans, who also speak a Siouan language. I think it is important when acknowledging the land and the history of Native Americans to also acknowledge that Native Americans are not confined to history nor defined by the impacts of colonialism. I implore you all to also learn more about the present day cultures, conflicts, and achievements, sorry, I lost my space, of the people on whose land we reside. Recently, the Monacan Nation won a huge victory against a local water authority that had planned a project without tribal input that would have destroyed a culturally important site, the Rossawick settlement. This year's conference presents panels on a variety of different professions, each of which are generally thought to be good, even noble: education, planning, health, and yet each of these professions have been at times used as tools in oppressing people of color. The fourth profession we will explore, environmental justice, is overarching and intertwined with each of these other sectors. And the Monacan victory at Rossawick is itself a fantastic example of environmental justice served. I'll drop a link in the chat to anyone interested in reading more about this victory, as well as one about current discussions around land acknowledgements featuring Dr. Len Nessifer, CEO of Natives Outdoors. And again, I invite you all to learn more about the issues facing local tribes and how you can be an ally. Today, I would like to thank the hundreds of students, faculty, and professionals joining us from high schools, colleges, universities, and organizations across the country, all joining together to learn about rewarding sustainability careers. We hope the sessions over the next 2 days will give you a sense of how to convert the knowledge you gain in classrooms and the skills you gain by working on projects into career skills, as you hear from and interact with experts, CEOs, entrepreneurs, college faculty, and others about building the equitable and planet-friendly economy that is our goal. As you go along, keep in mind 4 things. Technology, please bear with us during any glitches, and with a 2-day event, there are bound to be a few. If you encounter an issue, please first try either refreshing the tab you're in if you're joining via a browser, or closing and reopening Zoom if you're joining through the app. We are using Zoom events for the first year and are experiencing a couple hiccups that we weren't expecting, so there will definitely be some issues as we move forward. Please just bear with us. Interaction, please take advantage of the chance to interact in the chat boxes within Zoom and in the lounge. You'll notice that there's a chat box as well as a Q&A box. The chat box is used to talk to us and each other throughout the entire conference. We really do encourage you to add your expertise and ideas to the conversation here. Use the Q&A box to send questions to our moderators, which will be asked to keynote speakers and panelists at the tail end of their sessions. NWF support. NWF is here to support you as you develop your leadership and career skills at each life stage, from pre-K through high school to entering the workforce to further academic goals and beyond. And we hope you will explore and take advantage of those programs, which you'll hear a bit more about today and tomorrow. And fourth, a certificate of participation. 2 days is a lot of material and a lot of your time. Why not receive a certificate of participation for this program? We will send a link to complete a survey at the end of the conference and request a certificate of participation. I'm going to introduce the team. We couldn't have done it without the support both of the Leadership, Career, and Campus team seen here on this slide, as well as the Federation as a whole. I also want to thank our sponsors. We have campus and corporate sponsors that are supporting the conference, and all of these sponsors also have a booth in the exhibit hall. So when you're in the Zoom events platform, you're able to travel around virtually the expo and check out these colleges and universities, as well as our corporate sponsor, Rubicon. I'm going to give a quick overview of today's agenda. After the opening session, we will hear a keynote address by Dr. Karen Williams-Weaver. We have two panels today. They are on health and wellness careers and on environmental justice careers. We'll be interviewing friend and creator Vic Barrett. And we'll have two workshops, one on intro to career planning and another on job applications 101. So right now I'm going to go ahead and introduce our board member. Each year, we like to have a member of the NWF Board of Directors kick things off. And I'm really happy to introduce you to a board member who has plenty of direct experience with some of NWF's youth development programs. From 2011 to 2016, Jomar was a co-chair of NWF's Emerging Leaders Council. He received the 2014-2015 Emerging Leaders Fellowship and the 2015 NWF National Conservation Youth Leader Award. Jomar's leadership journey began during college. He earned a bachelor's in healthcare management at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University and a master of public affairs at Indiana University School of Public and Environmental Affairs. During college, Jomar organized sustainability projects on campus, was one of the founding members of the Florida Yes Youth Environmental Sustainability Coalition, and lobbied state officials and congressional members to support renewable energy investments and the Student Green Energy Fund for state colleges and public universities in Florida. Jomar, thank you for joining us this morning. And as member of the NWF Board of Directors, please kick things off. I am going to go off camera and try to get Karen connected. She's having some technical difficulties, so take it away.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for the warm introduction, David. Hi, everyone. My name is Jomar Floyd. Thank you all for joining this year's Conference. I look forward to your participation. To give a little bit more about my background and my involvement in NWF. A lot of it started when I was in college, undergrad, and I pretty much took advantage of many opportunities that was afforded to me. And those experiences really allowed me to participate in many development opportunities, which led to me becoming a board member. Also, right before I became a board member, I was in grad school and I actually hosted a EcoCareers conference, or I would say more so small webinar with undergrad students. So I'm familiar with this program. I worked with Courtney and others as relates to this career development aspect of things. So I will definitely implore you all to really take advantage of these opportunities for development purposes and really connect with the various participants in this conference. Next, I would like to give a warm introduction to our keynote speaker, Dr. Karen Williams-Weaver. Give you a little bit about her background. Dr. Karen Williams-Weaver was born and raised in Flint, Michigan. After high school, she attended the University of Michigan, Flint, before transferring to Tougaloo College in Tougaloo, Mississippi, where she graduated with her bachelor's degree in psychology. Little people know, Mississippi is my hometown as well. She went on to obtain a master's degree in applied psychology from Long Island University in Brooklyn, New York, followed by a PhD in child and family clinical psychology from Michigan State University, with a specialization in pediatric psychology. Dr. Weaver served as the first female mayor of the city of Flint from November 15th until November 19th. While serving as Flint's mayor, she was the second vice president of the African American Mayors Association and on the advisory board of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. To continue her commitment and passion for community and economic justice for people of color and underserved populations, she created the Karen Williams-Weaver Foundation. This foundation is a national voice of advocacy for communities to garner the resources necessary to rebuild infrastructure in a way that protects health, creates economic opportunities, and safeguards the fundamental rights to safe and affordable water. And this is just a tip of the iceberg. I would definitely recommend checking out the conference program for her full bio. Now I would like to turn over to Dr. Karen Williams-Weaver.
So I'll start over?
Yes, sorry.
Because I don't know where, that's okay, because I wanted to say thank you to you and to the IT person. Keith, I think you said is his name, because I was stressed yesterday. I was trying to get to you all because I wanted to have this conversation. And so not only do I want to thank you all, but the Wildlife Federation for having me. And I appreciate the participants for their patience as well. And I was saying before we stopped that I remember somebody was talking with me, David asked me, what do you, we were having the conversation about what I was going to talk about. And I said, I don't know if I'm going to talk about my journey as the first female mayor, if I'm going to talk about what's going on with Flint, both of those things. And it dawned on me after a reporter reached out to me, and the reporter was having this conversation about Flint. And he said, someone said to him, why are we still talking about Flint? And I said, you know what? That's what I'm going to talk about, is why are we still talking about Flint and what is so important about Flint and what it represents? And so let me just say that we're talking about Flint really because of people that are participating today, because of groups and organizations like the National Wildlife Federation. And I just have to say that the Wildlife Federation is an organization that not only had my back as a mayor that was in a water crisis, but had the back of the people of the city of Flint. And I'm so thankful for an organization such as the National Wildlife Federation. But the other thing is, when we say, why are we still talking about Flint? Because Flint lives matter. And when I say Flint lives matter, I'm talking about so many people, because one thing we know is Flint became a poster child. So when we say Flint lives matter, we're talking about other places like Benton Harbor, like East Chicago, like Trenton, New Jersey, like Jackson, Mississippi, and the list can go on and on and on, because Flint became that poster child for so many things, for bad water, for an aging infrastructure, for a public health crisis, for an economic development crisis, and for what environmental injustice looks like. Flint became all of those things, and it did, and it still continues to represent all of those things that we're here to talk about and be a voice about. If Flint's not the worst environmental justice done by people that were supposed to protect and serve us, which is our government, it's one of the worst. If it's not the worst, it's one of them. And one of the things that I knew, if elected, this was when I first ran, if elected, I was going to declare an emergency for the city of Flint. And I'm going to just be honest, I really wanted to declare a disaster, but I guess they say humans don't make disasters. Disasters are acts of nature. So the most I could do was declare an emergency. I knew, as a licensed pediatric clinical psychologist, I knew the impact that lead poisoning had, at least in the pediatric population. I knew that the impact that it had on young children and their cognitive abilities and their developing brains. I knew the impact that it had on those families that had to get extra services and supports and resources to be able to take care of their child. I knew the impact that it had many times on the siblings because so much time needed to be, toward the child with special needs. So I knew that. I knew as a psychologist, I had an ethical responsibility to speak up about that. I knew that something else that we all know is that water is a basic human right. And I knew that what happened in Flint happened as a result of race and class. And these are things that we knew in Flint, but many people didn't. And it's interesting because a year and a half later, we had to have not only somebody else validate that brown water was bad, but we also had to have someone validate that this was done because of race and class. And a year and a half later, the Michigan Department of Civil Commissions issued a report. And I'm just going to read what they said. They said that we believe that the vestiges of segregation and discrimination found in Flint made it a unique target. The lack of political clout left the residents with nowhere to turn and no way to have their voices heard. And so those were just some of the things I knew going into office. But I'll tell you what I didn't know. What I didn't know, or maybe I didn't stop to think about it because there was so much going on, is that Flint would be classified as the worst or one of the worst man-made environmental injustices. I didn't know that after declaring an emergency that all eyes nationally and internationally would be on Flint. I didn't know the implications because I didn't have time to stop and think about this, the implications for future conversations regarding access to clean, affordable water. I didn't know that Flint was going to really lead to an infrastructure plan for the nation. And I remember meeting with Maxine Waters, and she said to me, because of Flint, we're putting this infrastructure plan together. And I remember I just sat there thinking, wow, I didn't expect that. And not only did Flint expose, but it elevated these conversations regarding environmental justice issues that have poisoned poor and or communities of color for far too long. And Flint pointed out injustice after injustice after injustice. But one of the other things that I did know was that a crisis could lead to opportunity and example. And that's what kept me excited about Flint. And that was why I, spoke up so loudly about Flint, because I knew that, like I said, Flint was the poster child for so many other places, not just across the state of Michigan, but in this country. People said, well, did you know what was going to happen when you declared an emergency? No, I didn't, but I sounded the alarm. It's like, I am going to sound the alarm. I didn't, because what else could I do? I got in office in November of 15, and December 14th of 2015, 1 month later, I did declare the emergency. And, it was interesting because it was against a lot of opposition. I got a lot of pushback on declaring an emergency because if you think about it, when I got in office, we were still in a state takeover. Our power had been stripped. Elected officials had no power because the governor had, taken over the city of Flint. And so, it was against a lot of pushback. And I remember it was so funny because one of the things people said was, if you declare this emergency, you're going to make the governor mad. And I thought, well, okay, we've been poisoned and I'm going to make the governor mad. We're mad at the governor. What are you talking about? I'm declaring an emergency. I remember they said, well, you're only going to get $5 million, so what's that going to do? I said, well, okay, remember, we're in a financial takeover. We have no money. I'll take my chances with 5 million and see what else I can get. And really about $500 million of funding and resources came into the city as a result of that. And so, it was funny because I used the only power that I had, and that was the power of my voice. And I talk about that so often, never underestimate that power, because it's one that we all possess, and it's one that we all can and should use. I remember being asked, because the state had taken over Flint, and they said, what can you do any differently than the previous administration, than the other mayor? And I told him, I said, I can and I will use my voice. And I'm going to use it to sound the alarm. I'm going to use it to educate and inform and lift Flint up. And I'm going to tell you, I'll be at that table, because we deserve to know what's going on, whether it's good news or bad news. We need to be educated on how do we protect ourselves and what are the best decisions for us. And so I said, that's what I'll do. I said, I'll be in front of the media every chance I get. And that was what I did, because one of the things that we should all know is that silence is dangerous. Silence can be dangerous, and it's an injustice in and of itself when you know better and you don't speak up about it. And so I sounded the alarm anywhere and everywhere. And it was something that I was going to do as loudly and as often as I possibly could. Flint, there are different forms of government, and Flint is a strong mayor form government. So you go in as the mayor, you get to choose. This is my chief, my fire chief, my police chief, my chief legal, my DPW director. You put all of those people in place. But because we were in a takeover, I couldn't do that. And you know, so people said, well, how did you start moving that needle? I said, I used my mouth. I used my mouth. I said, that was first time I was like, wow, I'm proud to have a big mouth right now because I'm going to use this big mouth and talk. I had been in office 3 months, and I remember going to Washington for a conference, and they said, you're going to get a chance to meet with the president. And I was like, really? They said, yes. And so I got to meet with President Obama. This was in January of 16. And after I calmed down, because, you know, with my excitement, I said to him, I said, you know, I said, this water crisis has led to a public health crisis for the people. I said, you know, people have been poisoned. And while you have a Surgeon General, I said, we need somebody at the city. We need somebody that we trust because, you know, when you think about it, we trusted no one, and rightfully so, because we had been misled by, you know, every local, state, federal, every level of government. People weren't speaking up for us. And so I said, we need somebody that's speaking up and speaking out on behalf of the residents of the city of Flint when it comes to our health. And he said, you do? I said, yeah. He said, well, we'll see about that. And he sent a team that stayed in Flint and for 6 months. And they said, you absolutely need that kind of person. And it was the first time we ever had a chief public health advisor for the city of Flint. You know, I was in front of as many people as I could be in front of, telling the story. I was sitting with the governor, and I said, you know, I couldn't appoint anybody. And people said, well, how did you get that started? And I said to them, I said, you know, Governor, this chief of police that you have put in place, with this chief of police you've put in place, I said, our homicide rate has gone up, I don't know, 71, 72%. I said, but if you like those numbers, I'm okay. I'll tell the public that the governor is good with those numbers and he doesn't care about the homicide rate. And he looked at me and I said, and you know, that fire chief that you put in place, I said, he sold our aerial ladder. We have a dorm right downtown. U of M Flint's dorm is right downtown. I said, if that dorm catches on fire, every second lost in a fire is, you know, your goes against your life. I said, and we've got to wait for another fire department to come and help us. I said, but if you're good with that, I'll just let the parents know you're good with their kids having to wait. And he looked at me like, this woman has lost her mind. But he said, you can appoint your chief, your fire chief and your police chief. And that was how I was able to start getting things moving. And I talked so much that it got to the point where the governor never really said this, but it was basically, would you please stop going on TV? Would you please stop talking to the media? Because, you know, I was going on Rachel Maddow, I was going on CNN, I was going in front of elected officials, I was going on any and every media outlet I possibly could. And he wanted me to be quiet. I said, yeah, I'll be quiet. Here's what I need for me to not say this, fix this. Fix this. And so we got into this relationship where things started happening because I did realize there was an opportunity in front of us, not only to fix Flint and make Flint as whole as we possibly could, but be a model for other places around the state and country that were having the same kinds of issues and challenges we were having. So using my voice and you all using your voice. I mean, I was able to get the first ever chief public health advisor for the city of Flint, the chief recovery officer for the city of Flint, a recreation director, health navigators, bring economic development back to the city of Flint. And these were things that foundation stepped up to help us do. Foundation, because we didn't have the money to do that. Foundations stepped up to help us do that. so I just had to look at it as an opportunity. And one of the things I always said was, don't let us go through a crisis and not learn from us. And so I wanted others to see what we were able to accomplish in Flint. I knew economic opportunities were going to come. And usually what would happen is, you'd have these no bid contracts. These same big contractors from other places would get contracts and make money off of the backs of the people in Flint. And I said, you know what? If we're the ones dealing with the crisis, we're going to be the ones getting the economic opportunities as well. And so we changed some things. We had the National Guard that was, handing out water. I said, we've got 16 to 24-year-olds not in school, don't have jobs. They can be hired to hand out water. They can be hired to package up food. And that was what we did. When we were doing education around filter maintenance, we hired people from the city because, remember, we don't trust anybody. And so we hired our own to educate us. And we knew that for us to get through a crisis, we had to be part of the healing process and taking care of ourselves. It was an opportunity. And this is 2016, and it was sad, but it was exciting. And I say it was sad because it was 2016. It should not have taken that long for us to be able to have it was the first time we ever had an African-American company get a multi-million-dollar contract in the city of Flint. We had 2 contractors that were led by females, but we did bidding processes, and we made it so local companies could bid and hire people from Flint, because we knew the importance of being part of the solution and helping to fix ourselves. I also knew that, this was, like I said, it was going to be a model for around the state of Michigan as far as how they did pipe replacements, because we had the fastest pipe replacement in the country. Fastest one in the country. It had never been done that fast. And there's so much that I could talk about. Well, I do want to say this, because one of the things was when we talk about that pipe replacement, like I said, it was the fastest one in the country. And people said, how are you all doing this? And there were some things that I was stopping too, because we knew that this is a test model on how do you do things? How do you do this in a way that makes sense? How do you get these so people from your own city benefit from these kinds of things? And so that's what we were doing. I mean, we were on track for so many things, and we laid such a great foundation for such a tragedy. And those are the reasons that we're talking about Flint. Those are the reasons that we're lifting up Flint. Those are the reasons that Flint is so important, because people don't know the status of what's going on, and that Flint has not completely been made whole. People don't know that the pipe replacement has not been completed in Flint. People wonder, why does Flint not trust the water? Because everyone says the water's testing good. We heard you all had new pipes. Many people do have new pipes, and yes, the water is testing better. I said, but everybody doesn't. The other thing is, when you think about it, and I don't know if you all remember this or not, but GM complained about the water. They said the water was messing up their car parts. It was rusting their car parts. And that's when we said, well, think about what it's doing to our bodies. So our in-home infrastructure was damaged. Your plumbing, your appliances, your fixtures have been damaged for many people. And that's why you may have new pipes in the front of your home and water testing good, but when your in-home plumbing has been damaged, you still do not have access to clean water. No one has been held criminally accountable for what has happened in Flint, and we know it was a crime. We know the settlement that came to Flint was unfair and unjust. And if this can happen in Flint, it can and it will happen in other communities. I mean, because look at Benton Harbor. Flint was a model for what not to do and what to do. What you learned from Flint. And so for Benton Harbor to have happened is a tragedy. And it's a tragedy that could have been prevented. You know, and when I talk about a model of what to do, yes, this is how you do a lead service line replacement, the fastest in the country. This is what you do when you want to hire local communities and give the people that have been impacted economic opportunity. This is what you learn. And I got to give a shout out again to National Wildlife Federation, because you know, you came in and we said, we need to know how to test our own water. We need to train young people. And at New Development Center, that kind of laboratory was put in place where young people are being trained. So Flint's a model for what not to do and how you can do things and do them in a way that is fair and equitable. And that's what needs to happen. You know, so when you hear us saying that Flint Lives Matter, just know that we're talking about communities that look like Flint. We know we're helping to elevate the voice of the voiceless. And so again, I just want to say thank you for your support, National Wildlife Federation. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for your voice. I know we wanted to, I could go on about Flint, but I know we have some Q&A. And so I want to give people an opportunity to ask some questions as well.
Absolutely. I have a couple of questions that have come in. Thank you so much for that presentation and that talk. I think that the first question really kind of is a great way to bring things to the students that are in the audience. What would you say to current students, either in high school or in college, who want to make a difference in governance, who see some of these issues in Flint and beyond, but perhaps that don't necessarily feel that running for an executive office is right for them?
Mm-hmm.
What are some pathways that they should explore?
You know, that's really funny, because I've been a psychologist most of my adult life and career. I never saw myself going into politics at all. And I ended up there. I think I was probably the most surprised person. And so as a mental health professional, you know, it's like, I don't see myself as being mayor, but never, you know, I talk about don't underestimate the power of your voice. Don't underestimate your career path, and saying that, you know, because people say, well, what experience do you have? I had leadership experience. I had a lot of experience, and that's what you have to say. There are so many paths that I didn't know about until I became mayor. I didn't know about all of the jobs that are in the area of water. Explore those jobs, you know about that. I mean, you have to have a good city attorney. We need people to go into environmental law, because we needed environmental attorneys around us. The media is a big place, because you think about this. What was going on in Flint was going on for 18 months. It had been covered up. And so we need people in the media out there telling that story and lifting that story and educating and informing people. And we need people in media that are really there to be investigative reporters and tell the truth about what is going on. Those are a lot of those kinds of jobs that are so important. I mean, you think about it. There are some areas that you don't even think that are tied to government, but we had a public health crisis. And so those areas are so important when you look at environmental injustices that go on in so many communities. Health is always impacted. And those are areas we need people to go into, those health services, those kinds of things. We need people to, teachers, and administrators pushing certain kinds of curriculum. I mean, there was a lot. I didn't learn about some water things. I didn't learn about infrastructure. In fact, we need people to go back into those trades, you know, because you look at it, trades, when you look at plumbing and welding and what else was it, pipe fitting and all those kinds of things that used to be in a regular part of the curriculum were gone. And we needed them. It's like, what do you mean we don't know, we can't find enough plumbers? What do you mean we can't find enough people to replace the pipes? And so that was one of the things that I didn't say was, the construction companies that were put in place to do the lead service line replacement, we had them put apprenticeships in place so we could start training people, because those kinds of jobs are so important, especially when you have this big, huge infrastructure bill and you need people to do these. And these were jobs that were paying anywhere from $30 to $55, $60 an hour. We need people to go into those areas. I mean, so there are so many things that we don't think about as far as the political realm, but they're so important to our everyday lives and what we need as elected leaders in place to do our jobs. We need people in those kinds of jobs and positions. And maybe you don't want to be a government elected official, but you might want to get on the Board of Education. You might want to make sure these kinds of educational experiences and opportunities are available. You know, I'm meeting with some students tomorrow from Central Michigan University. We're going to be talking about what you all have done as far as the lab and new development center and training young people in these areas. So there are a host of things. Artists became important. We were telling our story through artwork. We were through storytelling, through dance, all of those things that you may think of as, oh, that's fluff, tells a story. And you have to reach audiences in so many different ways that you should not limit where you're going as to how you can have impact on your day-to-day life. And so I want people to think about it in those terms.
Excellent. We got a question in the chat box from Eugenie Lewis, says, can you share more work about your foundation?
Yes, you know what, and it's funny because it was something that I started when I first got in office. And I'm gonna tell you that national spotlight, it just took over. And I didn't have time to do a lot originally. And you know, when I put it in place originally, it was specifically just for Flint. I wanted to address things in Flint and be able to have impact in Flint. And as I got through, I said, you know, I'm going to change this some. I'm not going to change the philosophy behind it and the values and the mission, but I want to spread it to more than Flint, because when I would go around and talk and I'd hear about, we've got water problems here, we've got air challenges here, I said, this has to be for anybody that's having these kinds of problems and these kinds of challenges and making things available. And so I said, let me take it out of only Flint to make it something bigger than Flint. But it was, you know, it was something that I had a passion for. I never knew I had a passion for it until I became mayor. And that's when I said, okay, I said, there are some other ways to have impact as well. And that was why I started the foundation. And so now that I have not been in office, it's like, oh, okay, let me get back to some of this other work. And that's another way that people can have impact. You know, I should have thrown in there going into the philanthropic area as well, because philanthropy brings so much and philanthropy wants to be involved. Sometimes they just don't know how to be involved. And so bringing philanthropy to the table, because so many of the things that I was able to do and achieve in Flint was because philanthropy stepped up. I mean, the Kellogg Foundation gave us money to bring back economic development. The Skillman Foundation, the Mott Foundation. I mean, I could go on and on. Bloomberg. These foundations helped come to our rescue. And that was another reason that I thought this is important work to be done. And so that was how that started. I didn't see look, not only did I not see myself as mayor, I didn't see myself doing that as well. And I do want to say too, because I think you have some young people there, don't ever let your age count you out of anything. Don't let people tell you that you're too young to have an impact and to have voice. Don't let them tell you you're too old. You know, I mean, because sometimes we put ourselves in boxes and we limit what we're able to do. I remember, you know, I just told you, I've been a psychologist all of my adult career. I was doing really well. And I thought, how can I do that when this is what I've done all of this time? and I was putting myself in a box. And so I want to say that as well. Don't put yourself in a box and put limits on yourself because you're, well, they're only looking for women now, or I'm not a man, I can't do this, or I'm not old enough. They say I'm too young, because you remember we had little Miss Flint speaking up about some things. So don't let people put those limits on you either.
You just answered my next question, which is one of the themes that has been coming up in various presentations, has been being open to change your career path as you go along. So you mentioned, you were on
it's
along.
Hard. Yeah.
Oh, it is.
It's
Did
hard.
you have any I don't know, outside influences that were also, because sometimes you have the pressure from parents or from coworkers, colleagues that you were working with in pediatric psychology that may have pressured you? And how did you react to that?
You know what? It was so funny because it happened. So it was, yeah, okay, I got you. Because you know what? I volunteered. Somebody asked me to volunteer on a campaign. That's how I got involved. I said, I have never been involved in politics. And I knew it was something happening with me because I remember telling my husband, I said, I'm a spiritual person. I said, the Lord is taking me someplace different. I don't know what's going on, but I feel like I'm getting ready to do something different. And I have no clue what it is. And someone said, could you volunteer on this campaign? You've got great administrative skills. And I had stopped working at Mott Children's Health Center because I'd been over behavioral services. I'd been there for almost 20 years. And I said, I've never been involved in politics. And I remember, I said, well, I'll go and volunteer and see how I like it. And let me tell you, I started going there maybe a couple hours, 2 or 3 times a week. By the time it was over, I was involved and engaged every single day, trying to help someone else become mayor. When the government came in and took over, I stayed involved. And then people started saying, you should run for mayor. And I was like, what? And I just laughed at them because I said, you can't be serious. And I had to think about it, pray about it. I went and sought advice from older people who I looked up to and had respect for, and talked to them. I mean, I talked to a lot of people to say, do you really think I can make a difference? Because if I can't make a difference, I don't want to do it. And it took me a while, and well, you see what happened. But I'll tell you something. I'll tell you a different story about a career change because it's scary. But that's okay. Embrace it. I remember after I left my sister had moved out of a home we had grown up in forever and moved into an apartment. So we had this house and I had all of this stuff. And I said, okay, my attic is full, my back porch is full, the storage is full, my friend's pole barn is full from all of these things from the house we grew up in. And so I said, I'm going to take some of this to a flea market. Now, I'm a psychologist, I'm doing psychology. And I went to this flea market on the weekends. And I remember, I said, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I loved it. I loved it. I said, I'd like to have my own place. I'd like to have a brick and mortar place and sell. I started selling natural hair, skin, and body products. And I got really involved. And my husband's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm out talking. I'm going to start a store. I'm going to get a store. And he's like, yeah, right. And he'd see boxes coming in. He said, what is this? I said, I'm going to start a store. I keep telling you, what are you talking about? Then he said, Karen, where are you all the time? I was going to people that were into natural body products and learning how you mix things. And my daughter, she said, Mom, she said, what is that like to go from department head of behavioral services, you're on the management team, to working in a flea market? I said, Adrian, it's all good. I said, these people are making an honest living. I said, and they became like my family. When I left the flea market, they helped me. I mean, we put that store together. They made the shelves, they made and who would have ever thought that I would have had my own business? But that came from taking a chance and not thinking I'm above working at a flea market. I loved it, but it led me to something else, which led me to this. I mean, you just don't know where an opportunity is going to come from. So was there pressure? It was good pressure. I had been pressured before to be a physician because my dad was a pediatrician, and they're like, oh, you have to be like your dad. You have to be like your dad. I said, okay, but I don't want to be I don't want to be a physician. I want to be a psychologist. And there was a lot of pressure from a lot of my family because my dad died at a young age. And it's like, you must follow in his footsteps. I said, well, following in his footsteps to me means doing the right thing, following your passion, having impact and making a difference. And so it was difficult for me because I felt that pressure. But at the end of the day, I had to talk with my mother. I'm like, Mom, I want to be a psychologist. And she finally heard my cry and she said, I'm with you, but I'm with you. And it's hard, that pressure, but you have to follow your passion. Even when I did my dissertation, I was on a project and I was so uninterested. And I said, I'll never get out of school working on this project. and so I had to, and I started something that nobody else was working on, but I graduated too. And so you can't be scared to do that. It's scary, but find people that will support you in that and go for it.
Speaking of people that will support you, have you had any professional mentors along the way, in particular in those transition points when you first decided, yes, I'm going to go ahead and run for office, and then later when you said, I'm going to go ahead and create a foundation to solve these issues? Did you have people who, you mentioned going to elders for advice, did you have people who knew the nuts and bolts who could help you with some of the details?
There were some of the people right here that had worked on campaigns that I did reach out to. And it was funny, I met some people because I said, okay, now how am I going to talk to I need to connect with some mayors. And I remember I went to this event and it was in Chicago. So I said, I can drive there. I drove to Chicago. There were about 10 mayors there. And they were talking about these issues that I'm like, wow, that's Flint. Oh, wow, that's, and I could learn from. And so I said, I told them, I said, I'm running for mayor. And I had some of them say, you want to sit down and talk? And set up meetings with me. And they, Karen Freeman Wilson, she was the mayor of Gary, Indiana. I mean, she was one of those people that she sat with me, she listened to me, she gave me input, advice, and guidance. Remember Michael Nutter, the former mayor from Philadelphia. I mean, he sat with, same thing. I had mayors that said, yes, we will do this and we will sit with you and talk with you and help you. And it was just, it was wonderful. And then as I got in there, people started coming to, I remember U.S. Conference of Mayors, their executive team, they showed up in my office. I'm like, who are these people? I didn't even know who they were. I'm like, U.S. who? And they ended up being a support team for me and helping me. And so I got it from some unlikely place. Maybe they weren't unlikely, but they were unexpected because I had not ventured out, but I did surround myself with people that had been involved in campaigns in the city of Flint and had been successful because they were the ones that were saying, you need to run for mayor. I remember saying to them, yeah, right. I said, if you were serious, you'd stop, you'd talk to me and you talk to my husband, because it's not one of those where you fill out an application for a regular job. If you don't have your family behind you, you can't do it. 2 weeks later, I was at a meeting with they were like, we want to talk to you and your family. I was like, oh, wow, they're serious. But you do have to have that. You have to have those people that you can look to and go to, because I'll tell you what, in the world of politics, there's a small group of people that really have your back and that you can trust. Because it's a crazy world to be in sometimes. And so you do have to surround yourself with them and know who they are, because otherwise you don't get through it. You don't get through it.
Yeah. If you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to yourself while you were still in high school, unaware of all of these changes and opportunities that you were going to face to help prepare you for your career pathway, what would that advice be? I guess I would have said what I said earlier, don't underestimate yourself, Karen, believe in yourself a little bit more. Because in high school, it was like, I always knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be a psychologist since like 6th or 7th grade, I knew that. But I was kind of, I knew that, I was smart, but I still just, I put those
I underestimated myself a lot. I didn't see myself doing some of the things. And it took me a long time to really just get confident in myself and say, wait a minute, I can do this. And I remember I'd sit and when I got into the job market and I looked, I'm like, well, I can do what they're doing. But for the, for the longest, I kept saying, I wonder why they're doing that and I'm not doing this. And then it was like, you know what, Karen, you focus on yourself and follow your passion a little bit stronger, believe in yourself a little bit more, and do things that are going to get you in those places. I was kind of scary. I was kind of scary. I was, and I would have told myself also to pay attention more in some of those classes that I thought were fluff classes. I remember taking a public speaking class. I'm like, I am not going to publicly speak. And I just blew it off. I was terrible in the class. And so there were some things that I thought, that's not important. That's not important. Not realizing not only are you going to be speaking, even in the career as a psychologist, getting in front and having to do presentations, but the importance of some of those things. I wish I had taken it more seriously then. Maybe I would have been mayor 10 years ago or 15. But it worked out for me, but I would have just paid more attention to some of those things that I did not think were important.
I hear you. Well, thank you so much. That's all the questions that we have for you today. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you all for your patience and your persistence in getting me back. I appreciate it so much. I really do.
All right. And we will stay in touch.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.